Gentleman yields back. Mrs. Swalwell.
Director, the plain definition of an insurrection is violent uprising against government. On January 6th, an officer died. A couple days later, 2 died, death by suicide. Hundreds were injured that day. An eye was lost, fingers were lost. Officers suffered a heart attack. The counting of the Electoral College was suspended for approximately 6 hours. Members of Congress retreated to a secure location. Was January 6th an insurrection?
Well, Congressman, I certainly understand why you would describe it that way. In my role as FBI director, because that's a term that has legal meaning, I really have to be careful about using words like that and not getting ahead of both prosecutors and judges who have very strong opinions on what kind of public commentary, as you may remember from your past life, I can engage in. So I certainly understand why you're asking the question, given the circumstances both you described and a lot of the other details surrounding the attack. We are treating it as an act of domestic terrorism and investigating it through our Joint Terrorism Task Force. We are, as you know, now in the midst of bringing any number of conspiracy charges, which are particularly serious. But this is a very ongoing investigation, and there's a lot more to come, and I would expect to see more charges, and some of them may be more serious charges.
Director, we're all grateful when we saw the FBI's SWAT team and its forensic team on the floor after the attack. But before the attack, you told the Intel Committee that you were looking for and through social media as a key part of investigations, and that you would get tips from social media companies. Prior to January 6th, did the FBI receive any tips from social media companies about threats to the Capitol?
Well, we've had so much information now, I'm reluctant to sort of answer any question about the word any, especially because we're now, 500 arrests into an investigation and after the fact. Certainly we were aware of online chatter about the potential for violence, but I'm not aware that we had any intelligence indicating that hundreds of individuals were going to storm the Capitol itself, to my knowledge.
Do you believe the Bureau has the ability to monitor publicly available social media or open source intelligence collection?
Can you just repeat the question? I want to be sure I answer it.
Yeah,
correctly.
do you have the authority and ability to monitor open source intelligence collection? So, for example, any website, chat room, where consistently groups there are posting about threats, whether it's to the Capitol, whether it's to law enforcement. Do you have the ability and can you monitor open source?
So the answer to that, unfortunately, like so many things, is complicated. There are Attorney General guidelines as implemented through the so-called DIOG that have been around for many, many years now that govern what we can and cannot do in the space, all of which are geared towards protecting the First Amendment. With proper predication and an authorized purpose, there are a lot of things we can do on social media. But what we're not allowed to do is just sit and monitor social media and look at one person's posts, just looking to see if maybe something would happen just in case. That we're not allowed to do.
Well, in the public realm, we are learning that this attack on the Capitol was not a 500-year storm. In fact, as we speak right now, there's a count going on in Arizona related to the 2020 election where claims are being made that the outcome was fraudulent. The former president is telling people that he plans to be reinstated in August. And so you can see that when you have those statements, that count, social media may be a place to look as far as intentions to try and reinstate the president. Knowing that a storm may be coming, Director, what can we do to make sure that an attack like that does not happen again?
So what we can do, and we benefit very much from, is getting tips and leads about things that are on social media, from everything from social media companies themselves to members of the public. You often hear the expression that DHS coined of if you see something, say something. And most people imagine when they hear that, the unattended backpack in a Greyhound bus terminal or something. And obviously we want people to say something then too. Well, what we're trying to communicate is if you see something that looks like criminal activity and threat of violence, say something, including if you see something on social media, we need you to say something. And that's what our tip center is partly there for. But you can contact law enforcement, state and local law enforcement.
And has your
somebody
judgment-
gets the
The committee's, the
Thank you, Director. Has your
gentleman's
judgment changed that there was not widespread fraud in the 2020 election?
As former Attorney General Barr and former Acting Attorney General Rosen have both said, we looked, but we didn't see evidence of fraud sufficient to change the outcome of the presidential election.
Thank you, Director.